Now I'm wondering, what happens outside our comfort zone that makes a life that's really life? Again, I think if we search the words of Jesus, if we search the wisdom of the ancient scriptures, we find some clues, some answers to that. For instance, first, we grow best when we're outside of our comfort zone. In our comfort zone, we grow little to none. Outside our comfort zone, we grow a lot. Here's something Jesus said on one occasion. It's found in John chapter 15. He said, I am the vine, and my Father is the gardener. Every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, so that it will be even more fruitful. I did a little bit of research this last week on pruning grapes. And I found some things that are fascinating. Do you know the reason that you prune a grapevine is so that its growth will be a healthy growth, so that it will retain its hardiness against the elements, and so that it will produce the greatest amount of quality fruit. That's why you prune a grapevine. And what I also found is that grapes are only produced from new wood. 1-year-old wood in the grapevine, they call it. That's the one where the shoots produce grapes. And therefore what they do is they look and they discern which shoots come from wood that's at least a year old, and those are the ones they cut off, so that the ones that produce fruit get more of the nutrients, and you get more fruit, you get better quality fruit, and the vine continues to grow in a healthy way. Now, here's what I'm guessing. If a vine could feel, pruning would hurt. Is that fair? I mean, if a vine could feel, I would think having parts of you lopped off would really hurt. On Friday night, we had finished painting our bathroom. This was our big surprise to my wife when she gets back later this afternoon. She's down in Tennessee. And we had it all painted, and we're in the process of moving a very large mirror, literally it's like 6 foot long and 4 foot high, back into place. And now you know why that happened. Somehow it shifted, it fell from the little ledge it was sitting on. When it did, it shattered. My son and I, we don't even know exactly how it happened. I don't know what I reached for, but somehow when I did something, I sliced a hunk of this thumb off, or almost off. I had to call my friend Curtis, who was on his way on a date night to the movies. He turned around and came back to examine what had happened. And I'm telling you, having a part of your body lopped off does not feel good. And yet this is the analogy that Jesus is using as to what God does in our lives. He does things that hurt. He does things that make us uncomfortable. And he does it because he wants us to grow and develop in a healthy way. He wants us to produce the most amount of fruit that's the highest quality fruit. We would call that, in our terminology, success at the things that matter most. And because he wants that, he introduces discomfort. He introduces pain, because we grow when we're uncomfortable. Jesus knew that. Do you know another reason why it is he's always calling us outside of our comfort zone? Because we experience God when we're outside our comfort zone. Seriously, when we're here, God tends to become an idea. When we're here, God is a set of doctrinal propositions. He's somebody that we talk about. He's somebody out there that we believe in. Somebody out there that we might even talk to. But basically, God is kind of an abstract concept when we're in our comfort zone. But when life gets really uncomfortable, suddenly we begin to experience God in our lives, in our spirit, in our circumstances. Here, comfort zone, don't experience God much at all. Out here, where we're uncomfortable, here is where we begin to experience God. There's a fascinating story in the Bible that helps highlight this spiritual reality. It's about a guy whose name is Naaman. Not a really well-known Bible character. But there was this country called Aram, and it was one of the more powerful countries back of some 3,000 years ago or so. And Naaman was the captain of the army. He was responsible for all the troops. He was a strategist. He won wars. He conquered enemies. He brought safety and security to his land. And consequently, in his country, in his culture, he was the most famous, the most respected, the most revered. He was wealthy. He was powerful. He was influential. He was quite the dude. One problem. He contracted leprosy, which in that day was basically a death sentence. And by that, it meant a very long, slow, torturesome death sentence where you were usually viewed as being under the judgment of God while the whole thing happened. And it just so happened that in his home, there was a little servant girl, literally quoting from Scripture. There was a little servant girl who had been captured in some other battle, who happened to be from Israel. And she said to her master, Naaman, he said, you know, if only you could get to the prophet who lives in Samaria. That was an area of Palestine and Israel. If only you could, because there's a prophet there and he could do something about your condition. And you know, Naaman probably thought about that a while, and he was a little bit desperate, and he thought, if I've got to go to another country, to some prophet of a God I don't worship, to maybe find a cure, I'll do it. Because you know, people get desperate, right? When you're under death sentence, you'll do whatever to try to stay alive. And so what Naaman did is he basically got an entourage together. And he had huge sums of gold and silver and a huge wardrobe that he took with him. I mean, like 10 changes of incredibly expensive clothing. And he takes his entourage and they travel to Israel. And they go right up to the palace to talk to the king, because Naaman is used to dealing with the movers and the shakers. It's the prophet that's supposed to help, but he's going to go to the king. Probably going to go to the king and say, okay, hey, you know what? We can understand each other. We're men of power. We're men of wealth. We're used to a certain lifestyle. People do what we tell us. I need you to get your prophet. I need you to tell your prophet to get in here and do whatever he needs to do to try to cure me of my leprosy. But the king of Israel kind of freaks out. He thinks it's a trap. He says, I can't do anything. Leave. And so Naaman is basically angry and probably thinking, man, should I just go back and get my army and wipe this place out? Because I could. But then at that point, word gets to the prophet. His name was Elisha. And he says, you know, the king, he's all, upset because he thinks it's a trap. And Elisha goes, look, just tell Naaman to come see me. Word gets to Naaman, and he goes out into the countryside to see the prophet Elisha. Elisha in his home does not even go out to meet Naaman. Insult, awkward thing number one. Sends a servant out and says, I just want you to go there. I want you to tell Naaman, go to the Jordan River, not very far from here, and I want you to dip yourself in the river 7 times, and you'll be healed of your leprosy. So this servant comes out and tells Naaman, go to the Jordan River. It's right over there, not very far. Dip yourself in it 7 times. The prophet says, you'll be fine. God will heal you. Naaman loses it. What? I've already gone to a foreign country to find a foreign prophet, to pray to a foreign God, so that I would be healed. And now he's asking me to humiliate myself? He's asking me, one of the most powerful, influential men in the world, to go down to one of the dirtiest, scummiest rivers around. And that's basically what the river was like. It was a dirty, I've been there, I've seen it, it's all filled with silt and all sorts of things. And you want me to go? He says, there are rivers in my homeland that are 1,000 times better than this nasty Jordan River. I am so ticked, I'm leaving. I'll probably get my troops and come back, and then we'll show you who's who.